Ryan is 52 years old. He is sitting in his financial advisor's office for the first time in his life. The advisor pulls up the screen, types in Ryan's account balances, and goes quiet for a moment too long. Ryan has $143,000 saved for retirement. He earns $94,000 a year. He has been working for 28 years, and for the first time, he is doing the math. The real math on what his life is going to look like at 67. It doesn't add up. Not even close. The advisor runs 3 projections. In the best-case scenario, if Ryan saves aggressively from this point and the market cooperates, he ends up with around $480,000. Combined with Social Security, assuming he claims at 67, he'd have roughly $3,200 a month to live on. In Atlanta, where Ryan lives. That's survivable. Not comfortable. Survivable. Ryan is not a reckless person. He never gambled. He never made wild investments. He didn't blow his money on anything dramatic. He just spent it. Incrementally. Reasonably, in ways that made complete sense at the time. A house upgrade at 43 because the school district was better, a new truck at 46 because his old one had 140,000 miles, a home renovation at 48 because the kitchen really did need updating, 2 years of paused retirement contributions at 45 and 46 to help cover his daughter's college costs. Each individual decision was defensible as a pattern across his 40s. They were devastating. Here is the thing that keeps Ryan awake at night. He knows the math would have worked. He ran the numbers backward. If he had simply maintained his retirement contributions through his 40s, not even increased them, just maintained them, and skipped the house upgrade, he would have arrived at this same advisor's office at 52 with somewhere between $580,000 and $650,000 instead of $143,000. The difference between a comfortable retirement and a constrained one was not income. It was not intelligence. It was not luck. It was a series of decisions made during one decade, his 40s. That felt reasonable in the moment and compounded into a gap he can no longer fully close. I'm sharing Ryan's story with his permission and details adjusted because Ryan is not unusual. Ryan is the median. According to the Federal Reserve's 2022 survey of consumer finances, the median retirement savings for Americans between the ages of 55 and 64, people approaching the finish line, was approximately $185,000. That is not a typo. Half of all near retirees in the United States have $185,000 or less saved for retirement. Ryan's 40s decided his retirement. Yours are deciding yours. Right now, whether you're living them, approaching them, or just now understanding why they mattered. In the next 20 minutes, I want to show you 4 things most personal finance content on this topic never addresses: why your brain is specifically wired to make the wrong financial calls in your 40s, the 4 financial levers that actually move the needle during this decade, the psychology behind why smart, responsible people end up in Ryan's exact situation, and an identity-based framework that makes the right choices sustainable, not just theoretically correct. Here is the thesis. Stated plainly, your 40s are the last decade where the mathematics of retirement still work powerfully in your favor. Not the most important decade, the last one where compounding is strong enough to genuinely transform your outcome. After that, you're playing a recovery game. And recovery games have much narrower margins for error. Most conversations on this topic focus on what to do in your 40s. I want to go one layer deeper Why most people don't do it, even when they know they should. Because Ryan knew. He'd read the articles. He understood compounding in the abstract. He just didn't feel the urgency. Until he was sitting across from a financial advisor at 52, running the numbers in real time. The gap between knowing and doing in your 40s is not a knowledge problem. It is a psychology problem. And psychology problems require different solutions than information problems. That's what this video is really about. Your 40s concentrate 3 mathematical forces that don't align at any other point in your working life. I'll name all 3. And then I'll add a 4th that almost no one in personal finance talks about, which may be the most consequential of all. Force 1 is peak earning power. Bureau of Labor Statistics data consistently shows that median weekly earnings for full-time workers in the United States peak in the 45 to 54 age bracket. For most professionals, your 40s represent the highest earning decade of your career. The family earning $130,000 at 44, that was living on $100,000 at 36, has $30,000 in potential annual investment capacity that simply didn't exist 8 years earlier. The question is whether that $30,000 compounds for 2 decades or gets absorbed by a lifestyle upgrade. Force 2 is the last powerful compounding window. The math here is unforgiving. $1 invested at 40 has 25 years to grow before traditional retirement at 65, using a 7% average annual return. The approximate long-term annualized real return of a broadly diversified United States equity index fund. Consistent with projections published by Vanguard's capital markets model, that dollar becomes approximately $5.43. The same dollar invested at 50 becomes approximately $1.97. Less than half for the same dollar. Just 10 years later, that multiplier gap is why decisions made in your 40s carry consequences that cannot be replicated through effort in your 50s. Force 3 is expense stabilization. By the mid-40s, the spending categories that rose steeply through your 30s begin to flatten. Childcare costs decline as kids age out. Major furniture purchases are done. The starter home has been settled into. Professional development spending stabilizes for many households. $500 to $1,500 in genuine monthly margin materializes. Margin that was genuinely unavailable before. The central question of your 40s is whether you notice that margin and redirect it deliberately, or whether it vanishes silently into lifestyle drift. Force 4 is identity crystallization. The hidden force. This is the one personal finance almost never addresses. Developmental psychologists, including Erik Erikson in his framework of adult psychosocial development, describe the 40s as a period of identity consolidation, the phase where people shift from building their sense of self to defending it. This has a direct financial consequence. Spending choices in your 40s become identity signals. The house upgrade isn't just a housing decision. It's evidence of the kind of person you've become. The truck isn't just transportation. It's a public declaration. When spending becomes identity, cutting, it feels like cutting yourself. That's why intelligent, well-informed people make Ryan's exact choices. They're not being irrational. They're being human. And solutions that only work at the spreadsheet level will always fail at the identity level. Let me give you the numbers with full transparency about the assumptions, so you can verify and adapt them. Base case. A 40-year-old American with $110,000 in existing retirement savings, a household income of $125,000, and a 7% average annual market return. This assumption is conservative relative to the historical long-term average of the S&P 500. and is consistent with return projections commonly cited in Vanguard's annual capital markets model research. Path A. The disciplined path. Save 18% of income consistently from 40 to 65. Result: approximately $1.74 million at retirement. Path B. The delayed path. Save 7% in your 40s, then ramp up to 20%, starting at 50. Result: approximately $920,000 at retirement. A gap of $820,000. Path C. Ryan's path. Save 3% in your 40s due to lifestyle creep, then an aggressive 22% from age 52 onward. Result: approximately $630,000 at retirement. A gap of $1.11 million. Read Path C carefully. That saver actually contributes at a higher rate than Path A for the last 13 years of their career. They work harder, save more per year, and they still end up $1.1 million behind. Because the math of compounding is not about intensity, it is about duration. You cannot outsprint time. One more figure worth anchoring. The Federal Reserve's 2022 Survey of Consumer Finances, the most comprehensive household wealth survey conducted in the United States, found that the median retirement account balance for Americans aged 55 to 64 was approximately $185,000. Half of all Americans approaching retirement have less than that. Ryan's situation is not a cautionary outlier. It is the statistical norm. I want to go through the 5 decisions that most commonly determine 40s financial outcomes and add a psychological layer to each one that most financial advice skips. Decision 1 is housing. The "I've earned this" trap. The financial math is correct. Upgrading from a $380,000 home to a $600,000 home in your early 40s typically increases monthly housing costs by $1,400 to $1,800. Over 25 years, that cash flow, invested at 7%, represents between $900,000 and $1.1 million in foregone retirement wealth. But here's the layer that gets missed. The reason people upgrade isn't that they don't understand the cost. It's that the upgrade feels earned. After 2 decades of working, moving into the better neighborhood doesn't feel like a financial mistake. It feels like a promotion. The reframe that actually works is not "we can't afford this." It's what is the specific problem with our current home, and what is the cheapest solution to that problem. Usually, the answer is not a $600,000 house. Decision 2 is vehicles. The depreciation you never see coming. According to the National Automobile Dealers Association, new vehicles lose roughly 20% of their value in the first year of ownership and approximately 50 to 60% within 5 years. Choosing 2 $42,000 vehicles over 2 $21,000 reliable used vehicles, accounting for depreciation, financing costs, and insurance differentials, represents a wealth gap that, invested at 7% over 20 years, amounts to approximately $280,000 to $340,000 in foregone retirement assets. The psychological mechanism at work in your 40s. Your income has finally caught up to vehicles that were previously out of reach. The inner voice says, "I can finally afford this." That's true. It's just not the right question to be asking. Decision 3 is children's education. The love tax. This is the most emotionally complex decision on the list, and I want to be honest about its difficulty. A $50,000 Parent Plus loan taken at age 45 at federal interest rates that have ranged from roughly 6 to 9% in recent years results in total repayment costs that can reach $65,000 to $75,000 over a standard repayment period. That money is spent during the highest compounding years of a parent's savings timeline. Meanwhile, the graduating student enters a career with 40 years of earning ahead of them. The parent has perhaps 20. The families that navigate this well are the ones who have the financial conversation with their children early, not after the acceptance letter, but before the application is submitted. Merit scholarships, state universities, community college pathways, and federal student loans in the student's name all preserve parental retirement capital without eliminating educational opportunity. Decision 4 is career risk. The seniority comfort trap. Here is the counterintuitive move that most people in their 40s never make, voluntarily leaving a comfortable senior role for one with higher earning potential. Even when it involves genuine uncertainty, research on age-based hiring discrimination, including peer-reviewed studies published in journals like the American Economic Review and the ILR Review. It finds that age discrimination in hiring becomes statistically significant after age 50. Your 40s are the last window to take a meaningful career risk, land wrong, course correct, and still have 15 years of runway before traditional retirement. A role paying $35,000 more per year, obtained at 44, generates $525,000 in additional gross income by 59 before investment returns. Many people leave this on the table because comfort feels like safety. It isn't. Decision 5 is lifestyle drift, the invisible leak. Of the 5, lifestyle drift is the one that feels least like a decision, because it isn't a single decision. It accumulates through individually reasonable choices. The slightly nicer restaurant, the premium streaming tier, the vacation that's a little longer than last year's, a household whose annual discretionary spending grows at just 2.5% above inflation from age 40 to 55, a rate that feels completely normal, will spend approximately $140,000 more total over that period than a household that holds the line invested at 7%. That sum grows to approximately $220,000 by age 65. The leak doesn't feel like a leak. That's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Let me show you the exact fork in the road through Ryan's story and introduce Marcus, who took the other path. At 41, Ryan received the biggest raise of his career, a jump from $76,000 to $98,000, roughly $1,450 additional per month after tax. What Ryan did in the 90 days following that promotion determined the next 25 years of his financial life. He didn't know that at the time. Almost nobody does. Ryan and his wife decided the raise meant it was finally time to upgrade their home. The mortgage increase absorbed approximately $1,100 of the monthly bump. The remaining $350 disappeared into household spending. Ryan told himself he'd increase his retirement contributions once things settled. 2 years later, his truck needed major repairs. He bought a new one instead. $580 more per month. At 45, his daughter got into a good state school with a partial scholarship. Ryan paused his 401k contributions for 2 years to cover the gap. "It's only 2 years," he said. By 50, Ryan had $168,000 in his retirement account, barely more than he'd had at 40, when the balance was $130,000. A decade of contributions and market growth had produced almost nothing in net terms because every income increase was matched or exceeded by rising obligations. Ryan felt like he was doing everything right, working hard, providing for his family, managing his responsibilities. He wasn't reckless. He just had no system for capturing the raise before life claimed it. Now meet Marcus. Marcus and Ryan are financially almost identical at 40, Marcus earns $91,000, has $118,000 in his 401k, owns a home he's lived in for 8 years, and is raising 2 kids, aged 9 and 12. At 42, Marcus gets a promotion, a $22,000 salary increase. Before spending a single dollar, he and his wife hold what Marcus calls their raise meeting. They calculate the after-tax monthly increase, approximately $1,300. They agree, before emotion or opportunity can interfere, to redirect $1,050 of it automatically to his 401k via payroll deduction. It never reaches their checking account. They keep the remaining $250 as a modest quality of life improvement. Marcus's truck hits 112,000 miles at 44. He has it serviced for $800 and drives it to 180,000. His older kid applies to college. Marcus and his wife walk through the financial reality with her junior year. Before any applications go out, she attends the University of Georgia on a merit scholarship with a modest federal loan in her own name. Marcus's contributions never pause. At 50, Marcus has $534,000 in his retirement accounts. Same market. Same decade. Comparable income trajectory to Ryan. The difference: Marcus built a system, not willpower, a system, to protect his savings rate from the lifestyle pressure that consumed Ryan's decade. At 65, Marcus projects to retire with approximately $1.6 million and a paid-off home. The line Ryan comes back to every time he tells his own story: "It wasn't that I didn't know. It's that I never made a decision. I just let things happen." Marcus made a decision before things happened. That's the whole difference. I want to name the belief that drives most 40s financial mistakes, because once you name it explicitly, you can actually work with it. The belief sounds like this: I've worked hard for 20 years. I deserve to finally live well. That belief is not wrong. You have worked hard. You do deserve something real. The problem is the hidden assumption inside the word finally, the assumption that living well requires visible, material consumption: a bigger house, a newer truck, nicer vacations. The lifestyle your income now makes technically possible. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman's research on hedonic adaptation, replicated across dozens of studies, consistently finds that material purchases produce a relatively brief elevation in reported happiness before returning to baseline. Typically, within 12 to 24 months, the upgraded house feels exciting. Then it becomes just your house. The truck is a genuine thrill for a few months. Then it's just your commute. But the mathematical consequences of those purchases do not adapt. They compound permanently in the wrong direction. Here is the identity-level reframe that Marcus actually used. In his own words, "I stopped thinking of saving as something I was doing instead of living. I started thinking of it as investing in the version of me at 68 who has options. That guy was worth building." Research on self-continuity, conducted by psychologists including Hal Hirschfield at UCLA, shows that people who vividly connect their present decisions to their future self make systematically better long-term financial choices. It's not a willpower trick. When future you feels real and specific, protecting future you is something your present self actually wants to do. The reframe isn't sacrifice your 40s for a better future. The reframe is, I am deliberately choosing the form my success takes. That is available to anyone at any age, at any starting point. Here is a specific framework based on where you are right now. One non-obvious move per group. because the standard advice rarely goes far enough. If you are in your 20s or 30s, the most valuable thing you can do right now has nothing to do with picking the right index fund. It's this. Decide what enough looks like in writing with your partner if you have one. Before your income makes excess comfortable, define your lifestyle ceiling explicitly. Before the pressure arrives. The people who navigate their 40s best are almost always the ones who had a values conversation in their 30s. The non-obvious move. Schedule an annual lifestyle audit every January. For each major spending category, ask not can we afford this, but does this actually produce the satisfaction we assumed it would? Most people find that 30 to 40% of their spending delivers far less happiness than they expected. If you are in your early 40s, implement the raise rule immediately. For any income increase going forward, redirect at least 70% of the net after-tax amount to retirement contributions before it reaches your checking account. Do this through automatic payroll deduction, not manual transfer. The non-obvious move. Run the backward projection. Take your current spending on housing, vehicles, and discretionary categories, and calculate what those same dollars would be worth at 65 if invested instead. Most people have never done this math. Most people who do it make different decisions right after. If you are in your late 40s, the window is narrower, but the math still moves. Each additional percentage point of savings rate now has roughly 18 years to compound, which is still meaningful. The non-obvious move. Try a voluntary, deliberate lifestyle downgrade for 24 months. Not permanent austerity, a conscious, time-limited experiment. Sell one vehicle and don't replace it with an equivalent. Drop one spending category by one tier. People who go through a period of deliberate simplification frequently report they don't want to undo it, because the security it generates starts to feel better than what it replaced. If you are in your 50s or beyond, two moves matter most. First, delay Social Security claiming as long as your health reasonably allows under current Social Security rules. Claiming at 70 versus 62 can increase your monthly benefit by up to 76%, a guaranteed. Inflation-adjusted return, unavailable anywhere in the market. Second, evaluate your home equity as a retirement asset. A proactive downsize, driven by planning and not crisis, can release $150,000 to $400,000 in capital with 15 or more years to work. The non-obvious move. Separate your spending identity from your peer group. Many people in their 50s are still spending at levels calibrated to a 40s social circle that may still be inflating. Reclaiming your own spending values, independent of comparison, is available at any age. I want to close with Ryan, because his story doesn't end in that advisor's office at 52. Ryan sat with the projections for a week. Then he made 3 decisions. He stopped the kitchen renovation he'd been planning. He sold the truck, taking a small loss, and bought a 4-year-old Chevy Silverado in cash, freeing up $640 a month. He raised his 401k contribution to 22% of salary. He also picked up freelance consulting work on weekends, averaging about $1,200 a month in additional income. All of it going directly into a Roth IRA. At 67, Ryan's current projection puts him at approximately $720,000. Not the $1.6 million Marcus will have, but enough? Not the constrained retirement he'd been staring at across that desk at 52. Enough to stop working when he chooses. Enough that an unexpected $6,000 expense doesn't threaten his stability. He got there through 15 years of deliberate decisions he couldn't make in his 40s because he never clearly chose to make them. Here is what I want you to take from both of their stories. The 40s are not a punishment for people who didn't save enough in their 30s. They are an opportunity, a specific, time-limited, mathematically powerful opportunity that does not repeat itself. The compounding window, open at 42, is not open at 52. The income peak that makes this decade unusual will be followed by a plateau, then a decline. The version of you at 70, who has real options, who can stop working when you choose, who can handle a financial emergency without panic, who can say yes to the things that actually matter. That person is being built right now, not by what you intend to do, by what you actually do today. When the raise arrives, when the house upgrade is on the table, when the acceptance letter comes in, Ryan's advice, in his own words, have a system before the moment arrives. Don't negotiate when you're in it. Automate the right behavior before life hands you a reason not to. If this video gave you a new frame on something, share it with one person in their 40s who needs to hear it. Subscribe. I put out a framework like this every week. And drop a comment with one specific decision you're committing to right now. I read every single one.